You sure it's not going to interfere with them, right? In there. Okay. Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Continuing on from ayah number 42 of Surah Al-Imran. وإذ قالت الملائكة يا مريم إن الله اصطفاك وطهرك واصطفاك على نساء العالمين يا مريم اقنتي لربك واسجدي واركعي مع الراكعين ذلك من أنباء الغيب نوحيه إليك وما كنت لديهم إذ يلقون أقلامهم أيهم يكفل مريم وما كنت لديهم إذ يختصمون إذ قالت الملائكة يا مريم إن الله يبشرك بكلمة منه اسمه المسيح عيسى بن مريم وجيها في الدنيا والآخرة ومن المقربين ويكلم الناس في المهد وكهلا ومن الصالحين قالت رب أنى يكون لي ولد ولم يمسسني بشر قال كذلك الله يخلق ما يشاء إذا قضى أمرا فإنما يقول له كن فيكون ويعلمه الكتاب والحكمة والتوراة والإنجيل ورسولا إلى بني إسرائيل أني قد جئتكم بآية من ربكم أني أخلق لكم من الطين كهيئة الطير فأنفخ فيه فيكون طيرا بإذن الله وأبرئ الأكمه والأبرص وأحيي الموتى بإذن الله وأنبئكم بما تأكلون وما تدخرون في بيوتكم إن في ذلك لآية لكم إن كنتم مؤمنين ومصدقا لما بين يدي من التوراة ولأحل لكم بعض الذي حرم عليكم وجئتكم بآية من ربكم فاتقوا الله وأطيعون إن الله ربي وربكم فاعبدوه هذا صراط مستقيم فلما أحس عيسى منهم الكفر قال من أنصاري إلى الله قال الحواريون نحن أنصار الله آمنا بالله واشهد بأننا مسلمون صدق الله العظيم. Because the long translation, inshallah, we'll just go with it. As we explain, inshallah, we'll translate as well. Before we get into it, inshallah, just one question or masala from you. So, next week we'll have this program for parenting, right? It's a parenting program. It'll be in the social hall at the same time. And it's going to be a monthly program, right? So, I'm not sure if the week is set, like third Friday, or if it's based on the availability of the speakers and stuff. So now, what do you guys suggest that we do? Should we just cancel Tafseer next week, or should we can move it up to Asr time, or we could just move it to Saturday, Sunday for that week? So basically, going forward, the week where they have this parenting program, cancel Tafseer, or just move it to Saturday, Sunday, one of those days, or what do you all suggest? Huh? Thursday? I don't think Thursday will work. Mm-hmm. Oh. Yes, sir. You guys do Mashura amongst yourself. I mean, I'm already saying a different thing, but you guys talk amongst yourself and let me know at the end, inshallah. I'm fine, either way. Okay? But anyway, if we move it to another day, that's fine. If we do it same time, that's fine too with me. But I have to talk to the administration. Huh? I don't think the sound will interfere that much, but I don't know if they want to have two programs. And I don't know, inshallah we'll talk. Okay, inshallah. So just talk amongst yourselves, inshallah. I'll talk with Shahzad as well, and we do something. But anyway, regardless of how next Friday, if we do, we don't do, the Friday after that, I can't. There's my cousin's wedding, August 27th. Yeah. Inshallah. So you guys all talk amongst yourselves, inshallah. So now moving on to the ayah number 42, inshallah. So وَإِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ يَا مَرْيَمُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَاكِ وَطَهَّرَكِ وَاصْطَفَاكِ عَلَى نِسَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ. So what happened is last time, what we spoke about was Zakaria alayhi salam. Remember, Zakaria alayhi salam, he also had a miraculous work. So this whole discussion is starting from Maryam alayhi salam, right? Maryam alayhi salam, to Zakaria and Yahya alayhi salam, then to Isa alayhi salam. All of it is like a leading into Isa alayhi salam. And this is in the Quran, this is in real life as well. So Maryam alayhi salam, she had a regular birth, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He accepted her in a miraculous way, or in a very important and significant way. Right? Because girls usually weren't allowed to basically give their lives, make their lives work for the masjid. But that exception was made for her based on who her father was and based on glad tidings that she got. So now she was in the masjid. Now her uncle, Zakaria alayhi salam, was her khalu, right? He would see her, and every time he would visit her, because he was in charge of taking care of her, he would find fruits out of season. So now Zakaria alayhi salam had this thought in his mind for a long time, that I will have a child. But because he had reached such an advanced age and his wife was also very elderly, he felt shame to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something that's khariq al-'ada, something that usually doesn't happen. But when he saw Maryam alayhi salam's getting fruits out of season, he said, well, this is the time and the place to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have to take advantage of times and places. He said the month of Muharram, take advantage of this time, right, to fast. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said it's the best one to fast, right? Take advantage of the day of Ashura. Dhul Hijjah just finished. Take advantage of those times. Take advantage of certain places. The masjid is a place to take advantage of. The haram, it's a place to take advantage of, okay? So now he makes dua that, oh Allah, give me a child, a pure child, a child who's physically pure, who's spiritually pure, a child who will, carry on my work. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He answered this, and He had an angel call out and give him, say that you'll have a son, and the son is going to have 5 qualities. Number 1, مُصَدِّقًا بِكَلِمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ. He will confirm the word of Allah. The word of Allah is Isa alayhi salam. The reason that they call him the word of Allah is that he was born by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's irada. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's irada and His will is expressed by the word kun, right? So you say a word of Allah. That's all it means. Now he's confirming it. How does he confirm it? There's 2 ways that we could say. Some riwayat say that he was born 6 months before Isa alayhi salam. So see now this miraculous birth, a miraculous birth of a child to extremely old parents, this is a precursor of something even more miraculous to happen. Isa alayhi salam being born without a father. So now if he was born 6 months before, you could say that he was a precursor to this. Along with that, although when Isa alayhi salam was born, he said he was going to be a Nabi and everything. He said all of that. It's possible that not too many people heard it on a large scale. So Yahya alayhi salam, throughout his life, he was telling people the Prophet of Allah, Masih, Kalimatun min Allah, the special Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Masih is coming. He said, he used to say this all the time and announce. And when Isa alayhi salam was told to come to the people with the message, then he did. And Yahya alayhi salam had been pre-announcing. That's one way. The other thing is that some riwayat say that Yahya alayhi salam was born 3 years before him. If he was born 3 years before him, the first thing that he was saying as a child, he would say that, look, this Masih of Allah is coming, the Masih is coming, Masih ibn Allah is coming, Masih ibn Maryam is coming, right? The Masih is coming, right? So this is what either one could have done. Okay, so that was one of his qualities. After that, he was Sayyid, he was a leader of the people. He was Hasur, somebody who kept himself chaste and stayed away from the temptations of the opposite gender. وَنَبِيًّا مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. And he's a prophet, and he's from the Salihin. Okay? Now, قال ربي, then Zakaria alayhi salam said, Ya Allah, how is it that I can have a child when I'm old and my wife is barren? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, look, I said it. You made dua, now you're surprised. So then Zakaria said, no, I just want a sign. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he gave the sign, and the sign was that either you physically will not be able to speak to people for 3 days, or you'll lose all desire to speak to people for 3 days. And all you want to do is engage in the zikr. Or if you lose the ability to speak, then you'll still be able to do dhikr. So this is, number one, it's two things. It's a sign that the baby, the baby has formed, number one. Number two, it's a sign of shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this subhanallah, this tasbih, it fulfills two purposes, right? Okay, but after that, we move on to Maryam alayhi salam, Maryam radiyallahu anha. So وَإِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ يَا مَرْيَمُ, and remember when the angel called out to Maryam radiyallahu anha. The malaika here is jama, it's a plural, but for ta'zeem of a person, like a word, right? Sometimes you use a plural to mention just one person. Like this one angel is so great, I'm going to refer to him as angels, as a plural. So he's so pious that they refer to him as Abrar, all the pious people, right? Many pious people, right? Or like in Urdu, people sometimes refer to themselves as Ham. Even though Ham is, plural, or upon some people. Okay, so anyway, وَإِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ يَا مَرْيَمُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَاكِ وَطَهَّرَكِ وَاصْطَفَاكِ عَلَى نِسَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ. And remember when the angel called out and said, Oh Maryam, verily Allah has done three things. Number one, He's chosen you. Number two, He's purified you. Number three, He's chosen you over all of the women of the universe. So now Maryam radiallahu anha was informed twice that a miracle was going to occur. The first time, it was more general, and it was to mentally prepare her that something is going to happen. Something very special is going to happen. Okay? So now, the angel calls out and says that you've been chosen, you've been purified, and you've been chosen over the women of the universe. Chosen in general, and then not only chosen, but over every other one. Okay? So now, Ya Maryam Uqnati, since you've been chosen, how do you fulfill this? Ya Maryam Uqnati li Rabbiki wasjudi warka'i ma'ar raki'in. Oh Maryam, be obedient to your Rabb, your sustainer, your creator, your nourisher. Wasjudi, and make sajdah to him. Warka'i ma'ar raki'in, and make ruku' with those who make ruku'. Okay, so why is this mentioned? Number one, it's mentioned that a shukr for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choosing you. That doesn't mean that a person says, okay, I have a ticket to Jannah, now I can do whatever I want to do. That means you need to become more obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let me answer this question. For example, let's say that an angel came to you, certified letter, signed, stamped, everything, saying that you no longer have to pray. Right? You no longer have to pray, you're going to go to Jannah. Will you still pray? Sarah, will you? Will you?
Yes.
You? Okay, that's good. Will you fast in Ramadan? Will you give zakat? Will you go to Hajj? So the angel comes to you with a letter, stamped, sealed, approved, everything, saying that you just keep this, on the day of judgment present this, and you go straight to Jannah, doesn't matter if you did any ibadat or not. Would you keep fasting, doing zakat, praying, reading Quran? You do really think so? Okay, but Allah got such things like that, alhamdulillah. But, okay, so anyway, so now let's say that happened. Majority of people will say, okay, let me take advantage of this. But the pious people, as you were saying, right? The people who are the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they don't care about any of that, right? They don't care about any of that. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allah says about him, لِيَغْفِرَ لَكَ اللَّهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِكَ وَمَا تَأَخَّرَ, that I've forgiven your past and your future sins. Despite being sinless, even being fard, if there was some sin, it's forgiven. Now what does Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam do? He stands up on the musalla and he prays at night until his feet swell. You pray Tarawih here this year, right? You pray here? You pray here? Oh, we know you're here. You pray here? Do anybody's feet swell? We stood for 1 hour, your feet didn't swell. But how many hours Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam standing? Not 1 hour, not 2 hours, right? 2, 3, 4 hours Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam standing, his feet are swelling. Now the Sahaba asked him, why are you doing all of this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لِيَغْفِرَ لَكَ اللَّهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِكَ وَمَا تَأَخَّرَ. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, أَفَلَا أُحِبُّ أَنْ أَكُونَ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا. Should I not love to be a grateful servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Come to the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. Last year of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's life, the Battle of Tabuk, you have Umar radiallahu anhu, you have Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Usman radiallahu anhu, Ali radiallahu anhu. Tell me the rest of the Ashara Mubashara. Who are the 10 promised Jannah? So I said the 4 Khulafa Rashid. Give me one more. Abdurrahman bin Auf. Give me one more. Give me one more. Talha bin Ubaidillah. Give me one more. Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas. Give me one more. No, he's not in the Ashara Mubashara. Give me one more. Uncle. Take it. No. Abu Ubaidah radiallahu anhu. See, to pair them up, right? This is how you can remember it. Okay, so you have the Khulafa Rashidin, that's 4, right? Then Zubayr radiallahu anhu and Talha radiallahu anhu, they're friends. You can pair them together, okay? Then Abdurrahman bin Auf and Abu Ubaidah radiallahu anhu. The name sounds similar. You could group them together. Now you have 2 left, right? You have Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, and who's the last one? The last one's Sa'id bin Zayd. Sa'id bin Zayd, this is the brother-in-law of Umar radiallahu anhu. Sa'id bin Zayd, okay? So these are 10 people promised Jannah. If you go in Masjid Nabawi, you'll see their names are still written from Ottoman times in that courtyard. Okay? So anyway, these 10 were promised Jannah already. And in the last year of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's life, and now they're raising funds for the Battle of Tabuk. Right? They already promised Jannah. What happens? Umar radiallahu anhu, he says, I was so happy. Why was I happy? Because financially I've been doing the best that I'm doing in my life. And Abu Bakr, I knew he wasn't doing well. So I was like, this is my opportunity to beat Abu Bakr. Meaning they've been promised Jannah. That's not enough. He said, I want the highest place in Jannah. So he takes half of everything he has. He goes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, okay, you know what did you leave for your family? I left half. Okay, very good. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu comes with much less quantity than Umar radiallahu anhu. So then Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked, what did you leave for your family? He said, Allah is Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Meaning he brought everything. He already been promised Jannah, and he brought everything. That same battle, how did Usman radiallahu anhu react? He kept giving and giving and giving and giving till Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I don't care what Usman does after this day, Usman is promised Jannah. Right? You see, when he had already been promised Jannah, he was promised again. Right? But they kept progressing. Okay? This is the way of the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, on the day of judgment, there will be a group of people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to them, go into Jannah. They say, no. Wow. Because we didn't do ibadah for Jannah. We did ibadah for you, Ya Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say that our ibadah, my Jannah is where my pleasure lies. Go to Jannah. Say no. So then, chains of nur will come, and they'll take these people into Jannah, right? Also there are the students, children who didn't want to study deen, and their parents forced them to, they'll also be taken to Jannah in chains. Meaning, they didn't want to study deen, their parents forced them, and when they really excelled, they'll be taken into Jannah in chains. And those people who went out to fight Muslims, and they were taken prisoner, and they were made slaves, and they accepted Islam, they'll also be taken in Jannah in chains. But chains of nur, not chains of pain or anything, but just to express Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ihsan on these people. There's one great friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. At the time of his passing away, somebody made dua at his bedside, oh Allah, give him Jannah. He said that, what are you saying? Jannah has been open in front of me for the last 60 years. If I look into the sky, I could see Jannah. I never looked at it once because I didn't do any of this for Jannah. I did it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, when Maryam radiallahu anha is informed that she's chosen, what is she instructed to do? Keep being obedient. Keep worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worshiping in all different ways. So now look, ruku. It's famous that the salah of the Bani Israel didn't have ruku in it. So why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling you to do ruku with the people who do ruku? What's the reason?
In Sunnah, I think it was there. In the Sunnah of Prophet, it was there. The
Ruku to nahi. Sajdah was there, but not ruku. So why is the Quran saying for her to do ruku with the people that do ruku? That implies everybody's doing ruku. But then in Surah Baqarah, in the Tafseer of Warka'u Ma'arraqi, we went over the Bani Israel, their Salah Sajdah, but it doesn't have ruku. The reason is, this is a need to remember when looking at Quran and Hadith. Quran and Hadith, they address the people according to their level, speaks to them in the language that they'll understand. For example, you see the Hadith of Ya'juj and Ma'juj, right? It says that they shoot arrows at the sky. Okay? So now Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said missiles and this and that, where people understand what that means. No. He says arrows. Is it possible that it's arrows? Okay, that could be. Right? But probably it's going to be like missiles and this and that. But the language is used that they'll understand. Right? Even in the Quran, for example, the fruits that are mentioned in Jannah, the grapes of Jannah, they're nothing like the grapes in the world. It's just used to have a general idea. This is how the fruit may appear in some level. Okay? So now over here, warka'u ma'arraqi, ruku is something that Muslims will understand. Right? So this is why mentioning the story of Maryam alayhi salam, a word that Muslims will understand, and it's already been mentioned in Surah Baqarah, that's expressed over here. وَارْكَعُوا مَعَ الرَّاكِعِينَ. Along with that, it's used to express praying in Jama'ah, and ruku is also very important because the one who catches the ruku catches the rakat, right? So that's considered to be a very, very important part of Salah. Now over here, in regard to the sajdah means praying alone. Right? Sajdah means your private prayer. And warka'u ma'arraqin, this is referring to prayer in Jama'ah. So when you're all alone, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you're with people, when you're with the community, go ahead and pray. This is another thing as well. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is instructing a woman to pray in Jama'ah. Right? So are women allowed to come to the masjid? Yes or no? Yes. Fi nafsihi, there's no problem with it. The reason in some countries, some cultures, they say no, is because of fear of fitna and for cultural reasons. But in Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's time, women, they would come to the masjid. This is something also important as well, right? When fatwa are given, when we look at, rulings are given, right? You can't cut and paste things from India, Pakistan to here, 100%, right? Or for any country for that matter. I'm just giving an example. I'll give a few examples. For example, Maulana Maududi, right? He wrote the Quran, right? Now, is it, the good book? There's some controversy around it too. Whatever it is, right? He wrote it. But he said himself that I wrote it for Pakistan. It shouldn't be applied over here, right? This is his thing. This is what he said. Now, take women praying in the masjid. Some people also, they're very strict. They say women shouldn't come to the masjid. Or they say that, they make it so uncomfortable that women, they don't want to come. But now look, when Mufti Taqi Usmani, when he came to America, America, women should come to the masjid. They don't really have another way to learn. Mufti Saeed Palampuri, rahimahullah, they said the same thing. I was there when he said, he's like, aapke masla alag hi hai. He's like, in India, fine, women, they don't really have a need to come to the masjid, right? He's like, over here, he's like, there's too many masail here, they should come to the masjid. It's not a big deal. So over here as well, Maryam radiallahu anha, she is already in the masjid. So also if a woman is in the masjid, sometimes you see women, they'll be in the masjid and it's so ingrained in them. The women, they don't pray Jama'at, but they won't pray Jama'at all the way. If you're here, you should pray Jama'at. You should. There's no problem with it at all. If you don't see here, it's fine. Right? It's any prohibition that's mentioned by anybody about women coming to the masjid or coming to the Jama'at, all of it has to do with the culture and a fear of fitna that was real or imagined, wallahu alam, but there was because of that. But in and of itself, it's totally permissible for them to pray in Jama'at, right? And to come to the masjid itself. They should, especially here in this day and age, they should. Sometimes people, again, the same thing. People say, the women, they shouldn't come to the masjid. They go everywhere else over here, the masjid ko nahi. How's that? Right? This is where you should come. Spend more of your time here. Okay? Now, so she was warka'i ma'ar rafi'in. So this is the next thing. So now, out of the three qualities that are mentioned here, the first and third are the same. That okay, she's chosen. But the second quality is what? It's her purity. So what's the cause of her purity? The cause is that she grew up in the home of a Nabi. Why is she pure? Because she grew up in the home of this Nabi. And this is mentioned specifically that we've purified you so that nobody can blame her later on and say that you committed, such a bad sin. Although they still tried to do it. But they point you to the fact that you're from a pious family. Ya ukhta Harun, ma kana abuki ma'a saw'in wa ma kanat ummuki baghiya. That, oh sister of Harun, your father wasn't like this, and you're such a good family, how could you do something like this? Na'uzubillah. But they had it in their mind that she was from a pure family, and with takalluf, they accused her of things, but they weren't able to do it. There's also the connection to the next ayah. Okay? Because in the next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ذَلِكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الْغَيْبِ نُوحِيهِ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا كُنْتَ لَدَيْهِمْ إِذْ يُلْقُونَ أَقْلَامَهُمْ أَيُّهُمْ يَكْفُرُ مَرْيَمَ وَمَا كُنْتَ لَدَيْهِمْ إِذْ يَخْتَصِمُونَ. That all of this is from the news of the unseen that we reveal to you, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Remember, Rasulullah is telling all of this to you Najrani Christians. He had no way of knowing this. Allah saying that I'll reveal this to you. This is news of the unseen. This is another sign of your prophethood. وَمَا كُنْتَ لَدَيْهِمْ. You were not with them. إِذْ يُلْقُونَ أَقْلَامَهُم. When they threw their pens. أَيُّهُمْ يَكْفُرُ مَرْيَمَ. To see who would have the right to raise Maryam. Because Maryam, everybody knew she was the daughter of Imran, a pious person. She was divinely accepted. To accept her, to raise her would be a sign of your acceptance in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's eyes. So all of the scholars are debating who gets to the honor of raising this girl. Now this goes to وَطَهَّرَكِ. So now what does it mean by throwing pens? Does anybody know? Throwing pens? Huh? No. So in their time, this is the way of doing Qur'an, right? Of doing Qur'an, basically drawing straws, choosing something at random. When many people are going for one thing, right? You have to decide who's going to do it. So now, sometimes things are totally at random, right? Like for example, like now, nothing miraculous is going to happen. We write all of our names down on a piece of paper, and you say, whoever's name comes out will get the award, right? And then Badr is going to write his name down 5 times. No, I'm just joking. Right? So that's totally random, okay? Over here, there is a divine aspect to it as well. So, to show who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose, people would throw their pens in the water. Whoever's pens flowed with the current, it would be considered that they lost. And whoever's pen stood still or went against the current, it would say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants this person. And so, you were not there when they did this, but this is how they decided who was going to raise Maryam. And this was who got the honor? Zakaria alayhi salam. وَمَا كُنْتَ لَدَيْهِمْ إِذْ يَخْتَصِمُونَ. And you weren't with them when they argued. When they argued over who got to raise Maryam alayhi salam. So now there's two things over here. Number one, the order is flipped. Why is the order flipped? If it was mentioned that first they argued, then they threw their pens, you'll think that this is just one story. So it'll be, one thing is a continuation of another, so it's going to be one dalil of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's prophethood. When you flip the order, you're highlighting both things, and these are two separate things that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was informed about by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like in the story of Surah Baqarah, in the story of the Baqarah, when the story was flipped, sometimes the thing that comes later is mentioned first, and the thing that's mentioned first comes later. Why? To highlight different things. Because the Quran is not a storybook. It's to highlight lessons as well. Okay? That's one thing. The second thing is, what is the Shari hukam of Qur'an? So, Qur'an can be used to establish subsidiary rights, not essential rights like ownership. So, for example, if everybody inherits from somebody and you can't decide who gets what, you're allowed to do Qur'an over there. Like you would say, okay, we'll randomly assign him whatever name comes out, this person will get this thing, this person will get this thing, right? But if there's only one object, like there's this laptop, and now we say whoever's name comes out of it, they're the only one that gets this laptop, the others have lost their essential right as well. That's not allowed. So you can use it for secondary things, not for regular things. So like Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he used to travel, he used to do Qur'an amongst his wives as well. Whichever name came out, he would take that wife along with him, right? Okay? So now, but this is if somebody did have multiple wives. The Shari hukum is when you travel, you don't have to do Quran. That's mustahab. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did it out of his kindness. But you don't have to take any of them, and you don't have to do equality in travel either. Like it could be somebody else's day, but since you're traveling, you take whichever one that you want to take. Because perhaps one has more ability to help you on your trip than another. Okay? Now moving on, إِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ يَا مَرْيَمُ. Now remember when the angel said to Maryam alayhi salam. So now this is the second time that she's informed by the angel. Ya Maryam, O Maryam, inna Allah yubashiruki. Verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you glad tidings. بِكَلِمَةٍ مِنْ هُسْمُهُ الْمَسِيحُ عِيسَى ibn Maryam. Of the word from him. Of a word from him. What is that? Isa alayhi salam. Because Allah said, Allah don't have to say kun. Right? Kun is used to just express Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's irada. There's no need for him to say kun. Okay? Min husmuhu Masih Isa ibn Maryam. Wajihan. Now he has qualities as well. Number one, wajihan fi dunya wal akhirah. He has status. He's a person of great status in the dunya wal akhirah. وَمِنَ الْمُقَرَّبِينَ. And he's from those who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَيُكَلِّمُ النَّاسَ. And he'll speak to the people fil mahad, in the cradle. As a child he'll speak to people. وَكَهْلًا. And in old age as well. So this is an ishara. Isa alayhi salatu wassalam, he'll come back. وَمِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. And he'll be from the pious people. قالت ربي أَنَّا يَكُونُ لِي غُلَامٌ وَوَلَدٌ وَلَمْ يَمْسَسْنِي بَشَرٌ. Maryam radiallahu anha, she says, Ya Allah, how can I have a child? وَلَمْ يَمْسَسْنِي بَشَرٌ. No man has touched me. If you go into the Bible, many inconsistencies. And some Christians, they say that Maryam radiallahu anha, she was married to a woman, man named Joseph. Okay, if you really want to get into the inconsistencies in the Bible, one book, essential book, is Harul. You'll find it in Urdu, you'll find it in English as well. I'm pretty sure it's been translated to Arabic as well too. Is Harul. If you don't want to read that, because it's longer, condensed version, Mufti Taqi Usmani has the book, Bible say Quran Tak, or something to that effect. Bible say Quran Tak, or something to that effect. Mufti Taqi Usmani has it. I'm pretty sure that's been translated to English as well. So all of these inconsistencies within their scriptures is highlighted. So anyway, she says that Allah yakunu li walad wa lam yamsasni bashar, no man has touched me. قال كذلك الله يخلق ما يشاء. Allah said, like this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He creates whatever He wills. إذا قضى أمرا فإنما يقول له كن فيكون. When He decides on a matter, all Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to do is say kun, be, and it is. Okay? So now, إذا قضى أمرا فإنما يقول له كن فيكون. Now a detailed description of Isa alayhi salam, and we'll end with this. Okay? وَيُعَلِّمُهُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَالتَّوْرَاةَ وَالْإِنْجِيلَ. So what is a detailed description of Isa alayhi salam? If you want to sum it up, he has special knowledge, he has a special nubuwah, he has miracles, he has a nasakh, meaning abrogation, and he teaches tawheed. Okay? So number one, Allah says, وَيُعَلِّمُهُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَالتَّوْرَاةَ وَالْإِنْجِيلَ. And we will teach him the kitab, okay, the book. And we will teach him al-hikmah, wisdom. And we'll teach him the Torah, and we'll teach him the Injil. So what is kitab over here? Allah is already teaching the Torah and the Injil, and Isa alayhi salatu wasalam lived in that time of the Torah and Injil. What is kitab over here? Why is there a need to say kitab? What is this kitab? Quran. This is something to remember, this is something to think about. Now we have fitna of people who say Isa alayhi salam will never return, right? You have people like this, where, people are gaining, popularity, Javed Ghamdi's one, right? There is Abu Lais in England, UK, another one. They say Isa alayhi salam is not going to return, okay? There's many dalail in the Quran, many ahadith. But here's one that you could take from this. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيُعَلِّمُهُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. Okay, this kitab and hikmah, it comes together 5 times in the Quran. 3 times in regard to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and 2 times in regard to Isa alayhi salatu wa sallam. The principle is that the Quran does the tafseer of the Quran. When you're doing tafseer, first you look in the Quran, then you go to ahadith, right? So for example, صِرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ. Okay, the path of those whom you have favored. Who are the people Allah's favorite? Go to Surah Nisa. أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ. Those who are Allah's favorite. مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ. These are the people Allah's favorite. So now, in regard to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when this kitab and hikmah are mentioned, when it's mentioning Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's duties, without a doubt, it means Quran, kitab, and it means hikmah means wisdom, sunnah, the way to apply the kitab, right? This is what it means in regard to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in all three places. These Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's duties are being outlined to teach the book, meaning the Quran, to teach wisdom, meaning teach how to apply the book, the sunnah, and to purify the people, right? That's why hikmah is a key here. What is it? What is that? Yatlu alim, recite the book, right? Teach the Quran, teach hikmah, teach the sunnah, and along with that purify the people. Okay, so that's with Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What other possibility could there be? Right? So now you have to use the same meaning with Isa alayhi salam. Otherwise it's meaningless. What book is he going to learn besides? Now when you have these exact two words used in the Quran 3 other times, you're going to have to apply that same meaning here. And then why would he need to learn the Quran and Sunnah? What need is it for him in the time of Yahya alayhi salam and Zakaria alayhi salam? The time is when he returns and he has to lead this ummah. He will be knowledgeable of the Quran and the Sunnah because he has to lead with the Sharia of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And so this is the special knowledge of Isa alayhi salam. He had knowledge of the Torah, he had knowledge of the Injil, he had knowledge of the Quran, he has knowledge of the Sunnah. Okay? That's his special knowledge. Does that make sense what I said, right? So this is a proof of his return as well. Okay? Now Now another thing is why Quran and Hikmah, why is Kitab and Hikmah mentioned before Torah and Injil? Because he learned them he'll need them afterwards. He learned the Torah and Injil first. So why is Kitab and Hikmah mentioned first? Same thing as to highlight the importance, right? To highlight the importance. To make you think, why is this here? So like in Surah Nisa, in the ayah of inheritance, yusikumullah fi awladikum 3 times, Wasiyah is mentioned before paying off debts. However, everybody agrees that when a person dies, after taking care of the burial expenses, first you go to the debts. When the debts are paid off, then you go to the Wasiyah. Right? The Wasiyah is mentioned first. Why? To highlight its importance. Similarly, you see I think it's next week, if I'm not mistaken, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first says that the order is reversed about Isa alayhi salam being taken away and Isa alayhi salam being lifted up, right? So there's some people that try to make ishkal from there as well. So you can say that it's highlighted to just show the importance. We'll talk about that inshallah more next week. Okay? So now, moving to the next thing. وَرَسُولًا إِلَىٰ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيل. So the second thing of the Isa alayhi salam is that he had a specific nubuwah. But 2 places in the Quran, Allah says, I sent him as a messenger to the Bani Israel. His message was not universal. Here and in Surah Saf. Okay? Who made it universal? Paul. Paul, who was not with Isa alayhi salam. He was not from the Hawariyun. He was not with Isa alayhi salam. But he's the person who perverted the Christian religion and mixed it with all sorts of idol worship and paganism and changed it and then made it into something that it isn't and made Isa alayhi salam, na'uzubillah, out to be the son of God. Okay, then Isa alayhi salam says, أَنِّي قَدْ جِئْتُكُمْ بِآيَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. I was sent to you with a great sign from your Rabb. What is this great sign? It's Tawheed. But he doesn't mention it here. He mentions a bunch of other things proving his nubuwah, then he's going to come back to Tawheed again. So now what is this? Number 1. أَنِّي أَخْلُقُ لَكُم مِّنَ الطِّينِ كَهَيْئَةِ الطَّيْرِ. I create for you the shape of a bird out of clay. فَأَنفُخُ فِيهِ. Then I blow in it. And it becomes a real bird. فَيَكُونُ طَيْرًا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's permission. Meaning nothing is happening from Isa alayhi salam, all this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأُبْرِئُ الْأَكْمَهَ. And I cure the one who was born blind. وَالْأَبْرَصَ. And the leper. وَأُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. And I bring to life the one who's dead. بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. All of it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's permission. وَيُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِمَا تَأْكُلُونَ وَمَا تَدَّخِرُونَ فِي بُيُوتِكُمْ. And I inform you of what you ate and what you left at home, what you stored at home. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَةً لَكُمْ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. Verily in this are signs for you if you're believers. Now each prophet, their miracle is in accordance with the fashion and the craze of the time. So in Musa alayhi salam's time, the big craze that everybody was into was what? It was magician, it was sorcery, magic. So when Musa alayhi salam came with a miracle that even the magicians were not able to compete with. In Isa alayhi salam's time, it was medicine. So Isa alayhi salam came with certain things that nobody was able to compete with. With Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam at that time, and subhanAllah, till now the same thing exists, right? It was a mastery of the language, mastery of words, okay? Now Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam brought something that nobody could compete with. But even today, if a person is able to speak well, right? If a person, in rapping battles, if a person is able to freestyle rap, like just come up with, rap off the top of their head. If a person is able to compose poetry off the top of their head, everybody admires this person, right? Even now, when a person is able to speak and speak, right? People, they admire that. People are attracted to him. You win an election off of that. Barack Obama won an election off of that, right? And Donald Trump won an election like that in a different way, right? Right? As Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, إِنَّ مِنَ الْبَيَانِ لَسِحْرٌ. In some speech, there's sorcery in some speech as well. Okay? So now, so Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that was his miracle along with many other miracles. Now, more of his things. وَمُصَدِّقًا لِمَا. Now the fourth thing of his was that he abrogated, he changed some of the Sharia of Musa alayhi salam. You see that the Injil, it wasn't its own book per se. It was more like, when you have a book and at the end there's an afterword and they just kind of wrap things up in the book. Was it 5 years later and they have like 2-3 paragraphs? The Injil is like that to the Torah. The Torah is the main thing. The Torah is the asal. The Injil said, okay, by the way, now it's been a long time, we'll change a few things. Okay? وَمُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيَّ مِنَ التَّوْرَاةِ. And I have come to you, Isa alayhi salam, confirming that which came before me, meaning the Torah. مِنَ التَّوْرَاةِ وَلِأُحِلَّ لَكُمْ. And I came to make halal for you بَعْضَ الَّذِي حُرِّمَ عَلَيْكُمْ. Some of the things that were forbidden for you in the Torah. For example, eating camel meat and drinking camel milk, right? And the fat from the stomach of halal animals. Some of these things, so now they're halal for you. This is one of his other duties. وَجِئْتُكُمْ بِآيَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. And I come to you again. Now he says, I mentioned all of these, now I'm coming back to this big sign that I came with. وَجِئْتُكُمْ بِآيَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. What is this ayah? What is this sign? It's the message of Tawheed. The message of Tawheed. It's mentioned twice for its importance. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُونَ. So obey, so fear Allah. Be aware of Allah. وَأَطِيعُونَ. And obey me. إِنَّ اللَّهَ رَبِّي وَرَبُّكُمْ فَاعْبُدُوهُ. Verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is my Rabb. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your Rabb. So worship Him. هَذَا صِرَاطٌ مُسْتَقِيمٌ. Verily this is the straight path. This is the khulasa of everything. But I did all of these things. And I've done all of these things to reinforce to you that I am teaching you the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm not His son. He's my Rabb. He's my creator, nourisher, and sustainer. وَرَبُّكُمْ. And yours as well. فَاعْبُدُوا. Worship Him alone. هَذَا صِرَاطٌ مُسْتَقِيمٌ. Verily this is the straight path. Inshallah next week, maybe, depending on the outcome of y'all's mashwara, we'll continue, inshallah. If not, then not next week, not the week after, 2 weeks, inshallah, in September. وَآخِرُ دَعْوَانَا الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ.